Welcome to Study That, Doing This, a show for graduates and soon-to-be graduates considering a non-traditional career path. My name is Tam, and like so many professionals, I ended up working in a completely different field than I started out in. So I studied linguistics, and I now work in tech, and it was a bumpy roller coaster ride to get there. And back when I was about to graduate, I know that for me, it would have been very helpful to know that many professionals go through the same thing. Your career trajectory does not have to be straight arrow. And which brings me actually to my guest for today, Evelien All. Welcome, Evelien.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for being here and sharing your story. So Evelien is a copywriter and brand strategist and an entrepreneur. And so yeah, welcome. Let's kick this off with, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from originally, where you live now, maybe some hobbies.
Okay, well, I'm from Holland. You already told me a bit about me. So I now do copywriting for a living and also brand strategy. And I'm focusing mostly on helping founders because I actually have a background with my last job in innovation and startup coaching. So I'm kind of combining it now. So I'm really helping founders craft their voice and their online message, and also doing a bit of market research with that. So like I told you, I'm from Holland originally. I'm from a small village close to Rotterdam, but I spent most of my living days in Rotterdam. And I've also lived abroad. I've lived in Dublin. I've lived in Japan. I actually, just before Corona hit, I was traveling around Mexico.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So my heart is in many places by now, just like my friends. And right now, actually, just like 4 days ago, I arrived in Lisbon. So this is my first Airbnb here. Because I was for half a year stuck with my parents, but I realized like Holland, I've seen it by now, so let's move to another place.
Wow. Okay.
Just before the lockdown starts again in Holland. So
okay, same situation everywhere. So
yeah, I know, right? It's a thing.
That's really cool, though.
Yeah, it's an amazing city.
I'd love to go to Lisbon sometime, I have to say. So, all right, great. So, you already talked a little bit about how you help founders. Can you talk about what you do exactly for a living? So we said you're a copywriter, a brand strategist. What is it exactly you do? Can you tell us a little bit about your day-to-day?
Okay, well, you also talked about the fact that I'm an entrepreneur, very much in the starting phase, so I'm still figuring things out. I signed up, registered in May now as a company. So it's very much starting up, and I'm still figuring out my target group as well, like my market. But right now, I'm mostly writing online sales material. So I'm helping a couple of clients with social media, writing posts for that, the copy, the content, blog posts, and I also write website copy, SEO optimized. So it's all online content, and all of the clients I'm working with, they are all founders. Wow, so that's why, and I also just noticed I love doing that, but I immediately picked it up, like also asking about, okay, who are your customers? What are their needs? How does your product solve that? So I'm also coaching them with finding their market and crafting.
And so these questions, you started asking yourself these questions? You started asking yourself the same questions you ask your clients, basically? Is that how you got into entrepreneurship?
Well, no, actually the previous company I worked for, they were an innovation agency. I was hired there as a UX researcher. For clients and their own products, but eventually I was asked to join workshops we were giving at incubators.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So and coaching on customer development, which is just way broader than UX research.
Right. Yeah.
Because UX research, well, it's really about testing products, optimizing them, and making them user friendly. I got way more into actually finding out, okay, what problem does a product solve, for who? And I was coaching entrepreneurs on that. I got really involved in that and found out I find it super interesting. And it's just not just the user, the customer, but also the whole business aspect. Like,
Yes. Okay.
it's just so interdisciplinary. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've got marketing and sales in there too, business model, or biz dev, I guess.
Yeah, sort of.
So since you've done all these different things, I mean, everything from UX researcher to copywriter, maybe we can talk about what you actually studied. What did you do in your bachelor's? What did you do in your master? I know you studied in different countries too, and
Yeah, it's all over the place. It doesn't make any sense.
No, but it's super interesting. Let's start at the beginning. Like, where did you get your bachelor's?
I got my bachelor's in Holland at a small university. It was called Roosevelt Academy when I studied there. It's now called University College Roosevelt.
Okay.
And it's one of the university colleges in Holland. Back then it was very new. It's structured after liberal arts and sciences colleges in the States. So it's very multidisciplinary. You can pick and choose courses. You do have to work your ass off. Like, it was tough. But you could combine different things, very small classes. Like lots of work, but very like continuously assignments, but also presentations. You had to participate in classes, and it's very different from how most of the university degrees are structured here in Holland. And I took full advantage of all the possibilities there. First of all, I started out with a focus on physics, but then I switched to other stuff because I sucked at math.
You started out in physics, actually.
Yeah, that was my idea because I got fascinated by quantum mechanics. But then I started with math, and oh my God.
Yeah, it wasn't my thing either, I have to say.
I don't know, I cannot do math. But yeah, so eventually I ended up graduating with a tri-departmental in social sciences, sciences, and arts and humanities, as I combine courses in neurosciences, psychology, and music.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and then I also did and like music included piano courses at conservatory level, and then I also had some courses in statistics and computer sciences next to it, which I actually really liked and which I was good at, despite not being good at math. So.
And since you were able to sort of pick and choose from a really broad range of topics, did you already have a job in mind? Like, did you already know, I'm going to take this because I want to do this job? Or what was your idea? You just took everything that were you interested in? Or
Yeah, and I really just picked what I was interested in. I had no clue what I wanted to do. I think my dream as a child was to become a spy or a ninja. Which
you gotta have diverse skills when you're a ninja.
I guess. I did end up doing Krav Maga as a hobby, but
there you go.
but I decided not to make my career out of that. After that, and I wanted to become a composer, but that doesn't earn you any money. So after that, I was kind of at a loss. So no, I just took whatever I found really interesting. Mm-hmm. And especially psychology or neurosciences. I never had the idea I wanted to become a psychologist, but I just found it fascinating.
The classes, yeah,
and just the subjects. And music was just something that wouldn't let go of me. I mean, music is still really important for me. And then computer sciences, statistics, I liked it a lot for some reason.
I gotta say, me too. It's the only math I've ever liked. Like, I saw, this is something I can actually use, like, in actual life,
Yeah, it's so funny because a lot of people hated it, and I just got really high grades, and everyone was like, damn you. Okay, but yeah, and I think computer sciences because I was a really big gamer as a child.
Right.
Like, I was really big into gaming, like a Nintendo, a Zelda, a Rayman, everything. Computers, just I wanted to know what was going on there.
All right. And But then, okay, and then you graduated, and then you went to Dublin, is that right? For your
Yes,
master's? Okay.
to Trinity College.
Right?
I did a master's degree in music and media technologies there, which was an MPhil program of 2 years back then. Now it's just 1 year, which is a pity. But yeah, and I took that because, well, first of all, music wouldn't let me go. Like the last year at my bachelor's degree, I didn't have any music courses and was like, I need to
You're
go more
missing
music.
it.
Yeah. But I also was done with just writing papers. So I wanted something more practical. And this was also a lot of composing, producing, sitting in the studio, and making weird music videos. So yeah,
Sounds cool.
yeah, it was really cool. It was just 2 years of really hard work again. Like everyone from my study will tell you, like the 2 years are like being hit by two buses.
I'm sensing a pattern with music degrees being really, really tough here.
Yeah, they are actually quite tough because you have to practice a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could do composition, production for my degree, make visuals in Adobe After Effects a lot.
Was that the
And
media part of it? Like, is that
yeah.
one big degree? Okay, cool.
Yeah, you could pick a focus. Like my focus was more in the programming, so also program synthesizers, like writing code. For my master's thesis, I made an interactive dance performance live, and using a Kinectum processing, which is a programming language. There was also a big theoretical part with physics, so it still came back.
Oh, okay, it came back and helped you.
Yeah, I do know physics, I just don't know math, but yeah. So that was my master's degree.
That sounds really interesting. And did you like while you were in it, did you think of particular jobs here already, or were you still just in it for your interests?
Yeah, I think I was still, well, there was one thing which I really, really liked, and that was the music and image stuff. So making visuals with music, with sounds, and especially interactive installations. So I was thinking about becoming a creative coder specifically. And by the way, as a child, I've also thought about becoming a game designer.
I was just going to say, it sounds a lot
serious.
like game design. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seriously considered that, but I went to an open day and there were just guys, boys, which barely dared to talk with me. So, but yeah, that was the thing I was thinking of. And my master, like my master thesis, how do you say, coordinator, she was really encouraging me to do that. But yeah, it's one of the few coding jobs that's not well paid and very competitive.
Ooh, okay. That's
So,
the one.
yeah, the one that's not well paid. So I also somewhere I was still thinking of, well, I want to do something that has more impact, is less kind of fuzzy, like less artsy, and more with my psychology and neurosciences background.
Right.
So,
and then once you graduated, like what were your first steps? I mean, you have to sell this degree that's kind of, it's not as clear what you're doing. So it's not like a law degree and you're going to go to a law office and try and get like an internship.
Yeah.
What were your first steps? What did you do?
Well, first I got stuck, but that was my second summer that I started working as a game tester, but localization, so checking the text in a game.
Okay.
So I got into one of those jobs again, trying to figure out what to do next. And then I actually started looking for internships. So I had the amazing privilege that my parents were able to support me financially so I could do an unpaid internship. I hadn't done any internships during my studies. I worked my ass off, but internships were just never included, and there was no time to do a job next to my studies. So I decided to apply for a very interdisciplinary design internship.
Okay.
in Amsterdam. It was called, is called Media Lab Amsterdam. It's part of the, I say that hogeschool, like the practical university in Holland.
Okay, yeah.
And you became part of like a small multidisciplinary team on a social design project. So trying to solve a social problem, in our case, food waste, by designing a first prototype, some technical thing in half a year.
Wow. And you had half a year and that was the whole internship?
Yeah.
Wow. And how did it go? Did it turn out well?
Well, on the one hand it did, because I really loved that field, like social design, really trying to work on problems that mattered. This is what I missed about a very artsy direction.
Yeah.
I was like, what is the impact I'm gonna have? So this was really like, okay, we're really gonna work on food waste and really gonna tease it out. There was also the research part, which I really loved, and talking to people, the psychology part, like why are people not wasting food? And the creative part, so design and stuff. So I really loved that. But I was the only technical person in the group. I was with 3 people, and the other 2 were both designers. And they were like, oh, coding, I cannot do that. Actually, the only type of coding we ended up doing was the only type of coding I'd never done, which was app and online coding. Like my background was in hardware and Java. So I actually got completely stuck on that. At that time, I also wasn't good at asking for help, which is a common challenge for starting employees.
Yeah.
So I got completely stuck there, and the whole project, we managed to get it on just in time because I asked for help from one of the developers on the other team. But there was definitely a lot of friction within the team, and it wasn't the best first working experience, I guess, also because there wasn't really a good reflection on why that happened. But it did impact my self-esteem a lot. So
And what did you do after that? So I mean, at some point you got into UX research. Was that like the pathway towards UX research, or did you do something else before? Okay.
Yeah, so at that project, I was also, because at the start there was no coding. It was just the upfront research, which was like, you could say design thinking, which is what they taught us, but also the user research. So really less the specific UX research of testing the apps and making improvements based on that, but more really the research of, okay, the problem you're trying to solve and what kind of app, what kind of product could solve that. That's how I definitely, that internship contributed to that.
Yeah.
And I kind of did a similar project because then they asked me, they had a sort of exchange program with universities in other countries. So they asked me for a second project, a similar project, but in Japan.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Also unpaid or little paid. They paid a little bit.
Yeah.
But of course I couldn't say no to that.
Of course. I mean, you get the experience out of it.
So that's when I went to Japan and did something similar, but a bit less structured because they were still setting up things there.
And then is it fair to say you were in UX research for quite a while before then deciding to become an entrepreneur, or what were the next steps in your career path?
So the next steps were still very wobbly. So I guess back then the mistake I made there is that I took the easy path. That's a mistake I made after that internship, because and I can tell you a funny story related to that. But so that internship in the project in Japan, I have to say, it was very unstructured. So again, I was involved in doing the upfront research, but then the technical part wasn't really executed well, because just the whole collaboration with the university, they were still figuring it out, I have to say. But was one of the most amazing experiences in my life, being in Japan for half a year and working with Japanese people at a Japanese university. That was amazing, and it changed my life. But the project itself was still a bit unstructured. So I did do a bit of technical stuff, but actually not that much. But after that, that was still the time when everyone was looking for any kind of developer, including junior developers, and especially women. So what happened when I came back to Holland? I had no money. I was stuck with my parents, and I had gotten this one job where I was teaching creative coding, sort of, but at a school, like a very practical school, and it wasn't paying shit. Can I say that?
Sure. It's YouTube, not TV.
Cool. It wasn't paying shit. So then I got offered, and I was just dying to get away from my parents and start living on my own, you know. And then I got offered, like, for every position of a developer, because people started reaching out to me because they saw Java on my LinkedIn profile.
Right.
Literally for every job as a junior developer, I was accepted. Wow. And seriously, my skills weren't that good. But they were so desperately looking for developers, and especially women.
And they can train you on the job if you already have basic skills.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
But so eventually I took a job as a developer, while at the start I already knew I wouldn't like it.
Really?
You know, and that's what I did back then, you know. And yeah, so I got stuck in my first job as a mobile developer. But I also have to say that I was the only mobile developer there. I was completely working on my own. The lead developer had no time to coach me.
Oh, yeah.
So I was kind of left to my own devices. Eventually I became sort of a project manager / mobile developer. And I worked, I'm going to say this very honestly, I worked for 8 months on an app, and I never finished it.
Oh dear. So we can't download it, buy it.
Oh my God. And I got completely stuck there. And I think also my experience, a bit of traumatic experience from my previous projects, where every time also the technical component, it did something to me. So when I again started to get stuck on that, it's just, I started feeling really horrible at a job, and just thinking, like, how can it be that other people can do this and I cannot do it, and I must suck. And, you know, I started feeling really horrible there. So actually after months, I just left, because literally every day I was counting the minutes.
That's the sign it's time to go, I'd say.
Yeah, exactly. So that job was a complete disaster, I have to say. But my father was, well, at least you now know what you don't want.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, live and learn, right? When you're young, that's what you do.
Yeah, exactly. So
now we're at mobile developer. Now what? Now what happens?
Okay, so I quit my job. I luckily had enough money and a cheap room. So I got involved in organizing this event to get more women into coding, which is kind of ironic, but just after I left a coding job. But I got involved in organizing Rails Girls, which is a weekend where a group of coaches, they coach a group of women in making their first app. Men can join as well, by the way, but it's mostly targeted towards women.
Okay.
So I got involved in that, because I didn't have much else to do anyways. And via that, actually, one of the other organizers was running a small agency, an innovation agency called Firmhouse. They've now pivoted, by the way, towards a different model. So you can look it up if you want. But so I got to know him via that. And when he posted a job online for a product designer, I looked at it and I was first like, oh, this is not me. I don't have these specific design skills. So I was just like sharing it in my network. But then I looked up the company more and was like, well, I actually really like what you're doing. Is there anything else I can do? Because these are my skills. So they were like, yeah, well, actually, we are looking for a freelance user researcher, like someone
Oh,
to do
okay.
interviews for clients of ours. Back then I wasn't confident enough yet to start freelancing, so I asked for a full-time job, and that is
So
how
even
I
though
got started there.
they offered you freelance and you said you'd rather be
Yeah,
hired full time. Okay.
yeah, that was my, I didn't have much experience back then, so yeah, that's how I got started there. And because they were still figuring things, well, they were an agency trying to make a switch to being a product-based company.
Right.
So there was still, and it was a small team, so I was also picking up a lot of other things. So there I've actually done multiple roles, but eventually I could say that I've been in digital product development there mainly, and doing innovation coaching next to it. So
Cool. And
but,
so when did you get the confidence to go solo and start your own business?
well, I'm still trying to gather that. No. Yeah, no, it's so back at that job, first of all, there it was an innovation agency, and that draws a specific type of people.
Mm-hmm.
So they were all basically, well, not all of them, but many of them were kind of aspiring entrepreneurs. So
Right.
they all always had ideas and were working on side projects. And there were three bosses, actually really cool people, all three of them, but all three entrepreneurs. So that was already really inspiring. My family's not entrepreneurial, so but I think that's already the first step, like seeing like, oh, this is maybe a possibility, it's
Yeah.
not that strange. And then I was also helping out with the workshops, and every time I would be helping startups or founders, like basically test their business model and think about it and their market, I was like coming up with all these ideas myself and going like, oh, I actually need to do this for myself, and it really, it planted the seed of, I would actually like to do this myself as well. And then there was also the issue at that specific company. So there were several reasons why I left there. As I said, the bosses are great. I learned a lot there. I really liked it. But at a certain point, we made a switch to being a more product-based company, which made my role change as well. So I did less of the innovation coaching, which I then found out that was the thing I liked the most, to being way more of a product owner. So keeping up with the roadmap and more technical stuff. And then I found out again, I like that less. I don't know where I was going.
How do we get to entrepreneurship?
Yes, yeah, exactly. So again, there I also noticed that I'm maybe also not good at taking directions from other people. When I have ideas, I want to work at a strategic level.
Yeah.
And I don't have the patience to work myself up in a big organization. I'm also just not political. I have to say that is true as well. Like, I can be political, like diplomatic for short amounts of time, but not the entire time. So working within
and
a
not
big
for 30 years, right? Because at a corporate, it's going to take you forever to get way up there.
No, and we did a lot of innovation coaching for corporates as well, like really big companies in Holland, like Unilever and ING. And I just saw like all the meetings. Oh my god! And and half of the time was spent on PowerPoint presentations to convince the board of innovation to invest in them, and that's necessary in a corporate. But I was like, I don't want to do this. So Yeah, that's also when I realized like maybe I just want to be the one like who's actually on top of stuff, but not of a big company. So
yeah.
Yeah, and then I quit that job because I was like, okay, I need to just do something else, and I need to take my mind off things and just figure out what I actually want to do in life, because I was still figuring that out by that time. So I went off to Mexico for half a year with wild plans, but I love Mexico so much, I just ended up staying there all the time.
Yeah, I can see that.
I mean, me gusta. I love Mexico. It has a place in my heart and all the people there. But that's for another call. Yeah, and then actually around this February, I still had very different plans. So I was still with my head in the clouds, thinking about all these things, but didn't have a lot of clarity back then yet, I have to say. So there were a few things going on back then. First of all, there was this man in San Francisco, which I liked a lot. And I was somewhere kind of like, oh, maybe I'm going to move to San Francisco, And then there's Silicon Valley. I knew I wanted to move abroad anyways. And the States had basically already had plans of moving to the States or Canada since I was 6. So it didn't come out of nowhere, but it was kind of a reason, even one more reason to do that. So I was kind of looking at companies there, and my main goal back then was still, I just want to move to either the States or Canada, like Vancouver, Seattle, or San Francisco. So I was really just figuring out, okay, in what box in Silicon Valley can I fit myself into?
Okay.
So that was what I was doing back then, and also just, okay, then I'm gonna be a product manager or something like that, even if I didn't feel completely convinced of it. But then COVID happened just 2 weeks before I go to San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really sad. And back then, actually, a friend of mine was visiting me for vacation, which was really sad. And she also got food poisoning. So
oh, no.
We left early, and the few weeks she was there, she was stuck in bed.
The poor thing.
So yeah, so we went back with a plane to Holland, and then I got stuck with my parents with, first of all, dashed dreams. Let's say that was pretty hard on me. I think like on a lot of people, but yeah, also for me. And just going like, okay, what am I gonna do now? Because I cannot go to the States right now. They're all
not the best idea.
No, maybe Canada, but not the States right now. There are hiring freezes everywhere. But then I was lucky that a friend of mine, I met her 2 years ago, but she's an amazing woman, by the way. But she has her own social media agency. She's originally from Austria, so Salzburg.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, she has been one of the friends, one of my most inspiring friends over the last couple of years. Like, we really challenge each other in our thinking. But anyways, I came back and she was like, well, I'm trying to set up a blog for my website. Do you maybe want to write a couple of blog posts for that?
Right.
And I was like, yeah, sure. And that's how I rolled into copywriting. And to be honest, when I started doing that, I realized I'd done a lot of writing for my previous job as well, because I was
just going to say, you've done all these things in tech. I mean, there's like content or written content everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And I was almost the only one on the team who liked writing. So I ended up writing a lot of blog posts for my previous company. I ended up writing the first versions of the website copy, the landing pages we used for experiments. And I also ended up, as part of the startup coaching, reviewing a lot of websites of founders and going like, what is this actually saying? Like, maybe you should rephrase this. So yeah, it was actually a market research.
Mm-hmm.
so when I started writing these blogs and thinking about, okay, well, I had to start making invoices anyway, so I had to sign up as a company. And then I was like, I actually really like writing. Maybe I can make a business out of this.
Okay, so this is a really, really new idea, though. Just a couple months old in that case.
Yeah, well, okay, I do have to say here, because I was like, as a child, I wanted to be a ninja or a spy. There were many things I wanted to be, an astronaut. But I also, I started some books, like the first chapter and the back cover. But I actually also did I also liked writing as a kid and a lot of reading. So it didn't came completely out of nowhere, but yeah, it's definitely, I had never considered becoming a copywriter. I didn't even know it was a
so
thing.
like you've been doing it without knowing it, and you've always been interested in writing, but the idea of turning it into a job, that's the new part, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I somewhere once had ideas of writing a philosophy book or something. But I think that's mainly because my mom was like, yeah, you think a lot, so you would be really good at philosophy. Maybe you should write a book about it. I think almost everyone has the idea, I'm going to write a book about philosophy sometime, but
just thinking, scary idea.
Yeah, I was also like, it actually sounds really intimidating.
Yes, a whole book sounds incredibly intimidating.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that's the first time I actually, and also just marketing and sales.
Yeah.
I do also have to say that both of my sisters are in marketing. So now we're all in marketing after.
Yeah.
So
it's a family thing.
I don't know. Yeah, probably. Yeah, so that also kind of made me, because I'm pretty different from my sister. So I guess that also always made me think like, oh, if they are into marketing, I'm not.
It can't be for me.
No. So, yeah.
And so as a copywriter now, or a brand strategist, or someone helping founders get their whole web presence going.
Yeah, exactly.
Are there any skills from your bachelor's or your master's that you feel like, I use this a lot in my day-to-day? Is there anything, it doesn't have to be super obvious, but like, even if it's just something like patience, or is there anything where you say that really made it worth it for my job?
Yeah, I think one thing has really made all of a difference, and that's learning the creative process. So, and that was especially at my master's degree. I would have a deadline and I would have to compose a piece before then with not a lot of guidelines. And then you just have to find some way. You cannot just sit on a rock and wait until inspiration strikes you in some way.
Because you've got a deadline.
Yeah, exactly. You just have to find something. So yeah, just the whole notion of starting to experiment with anything. So with composition, I would often I did electronic composition. Mm-hmm. I would just start with a sample, like a recording of a sound, and I would just put shitloads of effects on it and make it sound weird and then put a couple of beats under them. And then I would start from there. But that's definitely something I also use with my work now. Like, I know that are just small techniques to get ideas and how to progress with that, and also when to stop and just go like, okay, maybe I have to let it rest right now and get back to it tomorrow. Like with the creative process, there's also, you have to take a couple of days for it. So you
sometimes create something, whether it's music or writing, let it sit for a while and then like come back to it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They have a term in copywriting called the shitty first draft. And apparently a lot of people have problems with that, but I didn't, because that's, for me, I know that that's the first phase. Like you just put you put everything on the
something
paper,
down, and then
something down, and then you look back at it later on and you're like, no, but that's the start, so.
So being creative on a deadline, that's the transferable skill.
Yes, and not trying to go for the perfect thing immediately.
Yeah,
like you just have to try out a lot of things. And
And if you could go back and do it all over again, let's say you're like 18, still thinking about what you're going to study, would you do the same things again? And if so, why?
I would. First of all, I would have never gotten where I am now without it. I do have to say, my working life, I would do that differently.
Okay. How so?
But, well, about my studies, first of all, I studied what I loved and what made me excited. And I haven't regretted it at all, because eventually it all came together somehow.
Yeah.
Well, at that time, people were like, what did you do? Like, what can you actually do? And I was
What is
like,
your plan?
I was always struggling to answer, like, I don't know, but I find it all really interesting. And, you know, I got somewhere in the end, and I studied what I loved. I thoroughly enjoyed my studies, and I worked hard, but I really liked it.
Yeah.
But that is also the thing that went wrong after that, when I took that first coding job. While I actually knew I didn't really like it,
Yeah.
but it was the easy thing to do back then. And because of that, I couldn't really put my full energy into it. I didn't really develop any skills, and it made me feel really insecure. So in the end, I knew that I wanted to do something else, something more creative, but I was afraid of taking the leap, and the money was also kind of like, oh, but this pays so well, and I want to, I have reasons for doing that, but in the end, I was driven mostly out of fear to take that job, and it wasn't good for my self-esteem. And I wouldn't say wasted, but if I would have done a job that I really liked, I would have developed skills rather than just sitting for 8 months on my butt in front of a computer feeling awful. And
it would have been more like your studies, where like it's really hard work, but you love it and you're going to get more out of it.
Yeah,
all
exactly.
Right. Makes sense.
Then I took the easy path, but eventually I couldn't put in the same effort.
Yeah.
I don't think.
But as far as your studies go, you would advise other people to go with what you love.
Yeah, I do think so. Yeah, it's funny. I was just discussing that with someone this afternoon, that there are these studies, like film studies, where you're not actually making films, and then you're wondering, like, what's the purpose of it? There are also just some studies, especially in Holland, that don't require a lot of effort. But I'd say study what you love, put in the effort though.
Yeah.
But if you do what really excites you, you'll be able to do that, And I would be picky about the colleges you go to, because the colleges I went to, they required a lot from you. They also gave you a lot of feedback. The teachers were all very involved, and the other students as well. So I think that makes a big difference. But yeah, study what you love and don't be afraid to work hard. It's worth it.
All right. And in your particular, music and media technology, is there one or a couple key assets that you think graduates in this area sort of bring to the table for potential employers?
Definitely the creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Actually, it's a combination of analytical thinking and creativity.
Okay.
Because technology is very technical. Like, we had physics courses.
Yeah.
We had to program. It's very logical, analytical thinking. And then at the same time, you have to compose stuff, and you have to be very creative. So while you're maybe like music tech, like, what can you now do? Sit in the studio? It teaches you a very valuable set of skills, a combination of skills that, not many people have, but that can be very valuable combined.
Yeah,
especially.
I'd say a combination of analytical and creative thinking, that's really powerful.
Yeah. So it's just, yeah, but it's just like, if you just stick to music, then your options are very limited.
Yeah, makes sense. So we've already heard a lot of great advice, but if you have any book recommendations in general or for career advice, that would be really great. Or any shows that you like, social accounts that you follow, that would be really great. And then we would link them all in the description.
Yeah, so one of my favorites, and everyone knows this, is the Tim Ferriss Show. Mm-hmm. It's a very famous podcast of a guy called Tim Ferriss interviewing high performers in their fields. But they range from like everything. So chess grandmasters, as well as meditation practitioners, and swimmers. And so I think that's very inspiring. And he has, you can look up lists, because there are like so many interviews. I think there are over 500 right now.
Oh, wow.
So I would look up the list of the best ones. And I really like the interview with Debbie Millman.
Okay.
She's the designer. So I would definitely look up that one, because she also talks a lot about career advice. And the one with Derek Sivers.
Derek Sivers,
okay. CD Baby. And then what inspired me to also in my entrepreneurial journey is the $100 Startup by Chris Guillebeau, I believe.
I'm sure I'll be able to find it, and I'll link it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's American, so I don't know whether you pronounce his name in a
and
French.
You never know with last names.
No. Dutch people, everything that looks a bit French, they pronounce it in a French way. Well, sometimes you shouldn't do that. So, but anyways, that's because he talks about small scale entrepreneurs. So rather than building the next Airbnb of blah blah blah,
right?
Talks about how you can use your skills to actually make more money, like as a freelancer, sort of. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So take-home message as a wrap-up question. Do you have one main piece of advice for graduates and soon-to-be graduates, not just in your field, but in general?
That's a good one. Yeah, I think I already gave that advice. Like, stick true to yourself. Don't take the easy path, because in the long run, it's the hard path.
Right.
That's
That's a pretty good summary of what we talked about today.
And don't be afraid to work hard, and also and that's also a big thing. Realize that everything worthwhile takes work. If things come too easily, there's usually like, don't be afraid to work hard.
All right, that makes sense. All right, so that's about it. Everything we talked about will be linked in the description below, like I said, including Evelien's LinkedIn profile. And I encourage you to follow her for more great content and advice. And if you'd like to hear more professionals talk about their non-traditional career paths, then I would say hit subscribe and check in next time, because we've got another great interview coming up. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you again, Evelien, for being here.
Thank you so much as well.
Thank you. Bye, guys. See you next time.